The 7-year run of Jim Harbaugh at the University of Michigan is apparently over. Sources online are stating that Jim Harbaugh has come to terms with the Minnesota Vikings of the NFL. Of course, Jim Harbaugh is coaching his alma mater, currently at Michigan. So you would think it would have taken a huge offer and a very attractive location, a very attractive job to lure him away from his alma mater. I didn't necessarily know that it was going to happen. Didn't necessarily see this coming to a certain extent, although the longer the time elapsed between the end of Michigan's season, which was over 30 days ago, something like 35 days ago was the end of Michigan's season. And here we are, the first day of February. And if Jim Harbaugh could not have made his commitment to Michigan football to stay there by now, like we talked about today, and the video has probably been released, Michigan podcast. We discussed it today with Steve Dace on Michigan podcast, and he put the question to me at the end of the podcast and said, is Jim Harbaugh going to be at Michigan this time next week? And I told him, I said, Steve, I am not good at this, predicting what coaches are going to leave, which coaches are going to stay, and what the final decision is going to be. I did say a number of times earlier than that, though, that the longer this goes on, the more it appears as though Jim Harbaugh is leaving to go to the NFL, because he is not putting himself in a good position to come back to Michigan for a number of reasons. The trust factor, the optics, the recruiting class, just not making it look like he really wants to be at Michigan if he is following this many NFL jobs. If he's going after this many NFL jobs, or at least listening to this many NFL offers, then his attachment to Michigan, his loyalty to Michigan, not that he's not loyal in a general sense, but his loyalty to his current job and his thoughts and interest in staying seem compromised. Well, they are compromised. So the reports are out there. It's not official, but there are reports out there specifically. Thank you so much. Lewis Papp was the first one that let us know during our previous hour. We were on the Nebraska channel with our Huskers live show that let us know that the Wolverine was reporting that Jim Harbaugh is leaving for the Vikings. And then I got a number of text messages after that. And so here we are. So let's see what, again, this is coming from the Wolverine, from Chris Ballas of the Wolverine, who says that Jim Harbaugh is headed to Minnesota for a Wednesday interview, but multiple sources say it's a formality. Harbaugh heads their planning to signing a deal with the Vikings. Harbaugh was not in his office for the entire day today. Other sources told the Wolverine that while he did not address the team, he did say some goodbyes and thank yous yesterday. Until then, it had been business as usual with Harbaugh recruiting and making his spring schedule. Harbaugh was first linked to the Raiders job in Las Vegas. That was back in December, many believing he was the franchise's top candidate. The Miami Dolphins have emerged as a candidate the last few weeks. Owner and Michigan booster Stephen Ross vowed he would not be the one to take Harbaugh from Michigan. There was speculation Ross would get involved if it became a foregone conclusion Harbaugh was headed to the NFL. Instead, Harbaugh is expected to replace Mike Zimmer as the Vikings' next head coach. So the Michigan players have not received word from Harbaugh. He has not met with the team. And apparently, according to this article, again, from thewolverine.com, Harbaugh has not met with the coaches either. And, of course, depending on what he wants to do with his coaching staff, he's going to look to move many of them from Michigan to the Vikings. I don't see the comment made here, but it was posted elsewhere, a number of places I've seen in the last few days, of what Jim Harbaugh told his coaching staff heading into next week to basically say, or maybe it was heading into this week to basically say, hey, take the week off. I'm not going to be around. You might as well take advantage of the next week. And there was an innuendo in there to basically say, you may want to look forward to your next job. You may want to put plans in place and be looking for your next job. I said it a number of times during this time frame in which Jim Harbaugh has been linked to NFL jobs that my thought was, okay, what moves an individual? What moves a man, a competitive person, to move from their current spot onward? So Jim Harbaugh, we know, is a Michigan guy. We know he's forever going to be a Michigan guy. He quarterbacked there for 3 years, was highly successful. He was successful in a limited fashion for the first 6 years, and then he breaks through against Ohio State, wins a Big Ten championship, goes to the playoff. Okay. So for me, if I'm Jim Harbaugh, there's a number of factors they could have played in here. I don't think money's one of them. I don't think money is a enormous factor. It's always a factor. Most of us take jobs where we're being offered the most money. Let's understand that. Most of us take the job that is paying the most money. Okay. We don't know what the conditions of Jim Harbaugh's new contract at Michigan were going to look like, because, again, remember that he was one of the highest paid coaches in college football prior to the 2020 season, or prior to the 21 season, coming off the awful 2020 season that pretty much got sliced in half. So we went from making like close to $9 million to half of that. Whatever the figures were, he got sliced in half for the most part. Well, then he proves himself last year, checks off all the boxes that they were looking for. And so we know that he was going to be signing a different contract, that they were going to restructure his contract again to reward him for what he accomplished in 2021. But we don't know how that compares to an NFL contract with the Minnesota Vikings. What does the average NFL coach make? So we're talking about a coach who has already succeeded in the NFL. So we're not talking about a first-time NFL coach, a guy that just wants to get back in the NFL and will take any job. We're talking about a guy that's got the third or fourth highest winning percentage in the history of the league, albeit a very short stint with San Francisco, I believe 4 seasons, went to 3 conference championship games and a Super Bowl. So he's going to demand a decent, not necessarily top dollar in the NFL, I don't think, but an average NFL salary, I would think. So money does come into play. My question was, he's got unfinished business at Michigan. He's got unfinished business at the NFL level, meaning he did not win a Super Bowl. He had great records for 3 years, 3 NFC championship games, went to 1 Super Bowl, came within a completed pass in the end zone of winning a Super Bowl, didn't get it done. So that's unfinished business. Unfinished business at Michigan, of course, is finally beat Ohio State, finally won the Big Ten, got to the playoff, lost the playoff game, did not win a national championship. There's the unfinished business there. But what was his evaluation of the situation at Michigan? Did he think that he maxed out Michigan? Did he think, this is as good as I can do? We put it all together this year to a certain extent. We had a veteran-laden team. We had momentum going. I pretty much maxed out this situation. I don't know if I can win a national championship at Michigan. I'm not saying that's what's going through his mind. I'm just saying that could be going through his mind, as opposed to any franchise in the NFL that is run by a capable ownership can win a Super Bowl. Now, that's the key element in there, is capable ownership. But they all have the same resources generally, same money from the NFL, and they're all capable financially. They have the resources to win a Super Bowl. That's not the same in college football. So there we have it. So it's come down to Jim Harbaugh. Why did he take this job? What was the motivation? And we will hear from him If these reports turn out to be true, which this may be similar to a Tom Brady situation where the smoking gun was accurate. It did take a few days for it to come through and for Tom Brady to confirm his retirement, but the initial reports were true. And so here we have the Wolverine, very professional, responsible site reporting that Jim Harbaugh has already accepted the Vikings job, is simply flying there on, ironically, National Signing Day. So it's National Signing Day for Jim Harbaugh in Minneapolis. That's his personal signing, but it's National Signing Day around college football, and Michigan wasn't expected to do much, if anything. So the class is wrapped up. So in terms of trying to maintain a class for 2022, this actually works out for Michigan and its next head coach, because Harbaugh didn't leave a month ago where they had to hang on to commitments. The class is basically signed. It's in. They're good for 2022. But guys and coaches, coaching staffs are already working on 23. So that's going to be the tough assignment to maintain that 23 class. But there's a lot of time to do that. So who becomes Michigan's next head coach? I'm going to jump here in the live chat, get your thoughts. Matt Rule comes to mind. That's been the name that's been out there for a long time. Carolina Panthers head coach, former head coach at Temple and Baylor. Matt Campbell always comes up for any of these jobs because of what he's done at Iowa State, and that just about all these jobs that come open that we talk about are of a higher status than Iowa State. So those two names come to mind. And then on the Michigan staff, I don't necessarily know if any of those guys are credentialed enough. Josh Gaddis would be one as the offensive coordinator. All right, tons of comments to get through. All right, so I'm going to get through these comments quickly. So if I don't get to your comment or question, understand we just want to get to the best comments and questions. We named the source thewolverine.com, but there are other sources coming in. Dennis Hattie's probably got the best source right there. If the gift shops are already stocked with purple pleated khakis, I think that's pretty much answered our question right there. That is your best source right there. There's competing thoughts about the relevance of the Vikings, and we know that the Vikings have been a very competitive organization, even though they've not reached a Super Bowl since 1977. And they've got a kind of an aging team, maxed out in the salary cap, not a lot of options there. They pretty much had their run a few years ago when they went to the NFC Championship game under Mike Zimmer, the Case Keenum team, loaded on defense with Dalvin Cook at running back and Stephon Diggs and all of that crew. They were really good, should have gotten to a Super Bowl, but that window has kind of passed them by. So, but let's understand, in the NFL, these teams are only a couple of years away. One or two, you could take the worst team in the league, and under the right ownership, putting the right draft picks in place, the right coaching staff, and some key free agent signings, they can become good like that, i.e. Cincinnati Bengals, most recent. Now, of course, they played their way into the number one pick in the NFL draft. So there is that help that they got. So first order of business, as we've cleaned up all the details as it stands, as it's being reported, is, hey, who do you want as the Michigan head coach? So speaking from an Ohio State fan there, the Rod Farva, please hire Josh Gaddis. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Michigan's going to go big. Not necessarily that the guy's going to be super, super well known, but they're going to go on a national scale and really look for somebody who's prepared for this. So at least Jim Harbaugh can go off into the sunset as it pertains to Michigan football and be able to say, I didn't go 0 against Ohio State as the coach. Of course, he went 0 in terms of losses as the Michigan quarterback. He was 2-0 against the Buckeyes, but did not go over. Had that 0 for 5, and then it finishes at 1-5 for Harbaugh and Michigan. Yeah, JT's letting us know, as I completely agree. Josh Gaddis, I don't think is prepared for the job. Bill O'Brien is another candidate and another guy that's been talked about much. Here we got G Bama Boy saying Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator at Alabama, of course, did a fine job with Penn State. Actually, he maintained order and brought Penn State football through a difficult time to get them handed off to James Franklin, and that program was in much better shape because of Bill O'Brien. Even though he wasn't the best with the Texans, he got off to a good start there as well. He had some really good seasons with the Texans, but I understand not necessarily the best guy to get along with. All right. So this, I don't know, Rob. Rob is saying Harbaugh probably gone, but is this the same source that had him going to the Raiders 3 weeks ago? I do not know. Alex, as a Michigan fan, says, no, God, please, not Bill O'Brien. Jack likes Bill O'Brien. AMAC, Dave Aranda. Wow. You would think he would leave Baylor to go to Michigan. You would think that's an obvious step up. Bobby, it's not official. It's not official. We're running with this because the conversation, we got to get ahead of the conversation. So most likely, if a top line site is going to report it, then I'm going to be here and I'm going to put up this banner. I'm going to say, hey, there is no way with my sources I can confirm that Jim Harbaugh is the Minnesota Vikings' next head coach. But based on reports out there online, Jim Harbaugh is leaving Michigan. He's getting on a flight on Wednesday, as we just talked about and read from the article on the Wolverine. And that was supposed to be, so earlier today, we talked to Steve Deace, Michigan Podcast. Check out the section there. I hope all of you follow Steve Deace on Michigan Podcast. Does an exceptional job. I am fortunate enough to get the invite every Tuesday, so we have a conversation, and I've got a segment on Michigan Podcast. And Steve let us know that, hey, Jim Harbaugh is getting on a flight to go to Minnesota tomorrow. That's what the rumors say, and that's what's being reported. And that's to interview with the Vikings. Well, apparently, according to the Wolverine, and we could take this from, let's say, the Lincoln Riley or the Brian Kelly situations with Notre Dame and USC, that those coaches, by all accounts, did not get on a flight and go to those destinations until they had the job. This can all be done via Zoom, Skype. And so Jim Harbaugh has probably already had all the crucial conversations, been interviewed, put a contract framework down, and everything's just about all set. He just is going to Minneapolis to sew it all together now. Justin wants Rule, Aranda, or Stoops. Stoops and Aranda long shots. I don't know why Aranda would be a long shot. I don't know. Bob Stoops has to be a long shot. I don't know that Bob Stoops wants to coach anymore. Well, D-Rock Irish, I don't believe they're going to be there. There could be some stragglers out there that Michigan was expecting to sign that have committed since National Signing Day, but I know that there are one or two dudes that signed, or I'm sorry, committed after National Signing Day on December 15th, but they've got their class pretty well in play. Let's address that right now. So, according to 247 Sports, the Michigan 22 class is 8th in the country, number 3 in the Big Ten. So, whoever inherits this team inherits a really good team. 22 players have signed a letter of intent. So the class is pretty well signed. There's only one player in question, D-Rock. So there's only one player, and that's Cavante Henry, who committed last June, stayed committed, but did not sign on National Signing Day. So maybe he's glad he didn't. He's coming all the way in from California. He's a 3-star edge rusher, number 33, Cavante Henry. So he's a California kid, may have made a commitment largely because of Jim Harbaugh, but did not sign, even though he's been committed for 7 months, did not sign on December 15th with Michigan. So that could be a guy right there that you lose. He doesn't want the uncertainty. He's got to sign. He's got to sign now on National Signing Day. And so he may be looking elsewhere. That's an interesting take on Cavante Henry, the edge rusher from California, who also has been offered by Arizona, Oklahoma, Washington, Arizona State, and actually 15 total schools. But everybody else in the class is signed. 22 signed. So Cavante Henry would be the one that's out there. AMAC is telling us that Dave Aranda has not signed his extension yet, which has been on his desk since before the end of the season. So Roger Dodger does not believe that it's a done deal because Patrick Graham, the Giants defensive coordinator, had an 8-hour interview today with Minnesota. Alex, so the timing of it is interesting in that from a coaching standpoint, meaning the next head coach and a coaching staff that he would have to build, did he screw Michigan? Not completely did he screw them. There are still really good coaches that could be gotten. And look at what's happened over the last couple of years of college football, especially this offseason. Guys will just leave at any time. So I agree with your statement, but screwed is a little heavy. I don't think he really screwed Michigan with the timing. If anything, he saved Michigan with the recruiting class. If, let's say, he would have left, now this probably wouldn't have happened since it's an NFL job. This happened in a lot of cases with college jobs because the season ended at the end of November and guys left before National Signing Day, December 15th. And that really put classes, at LSU and, a number of teams that put their classes in jeopardy, Oklahoma, et cetera. And the coaches have to do damage control and have to build relationships and try to maintain those kids and keep them there. But with the Michigan situation, just like I outlined, they've got their signing class completely in. 22 players, one guy's out there. And if I were a betting man, I'd say that Cavante Henry sign that commit is done. He's in California. He's committed to some degree because of Jim Harbaugh. You got to think, bam, this news comes out 12 hours before he's going to sign to play at Michigan. He's probably going to say, you know what? No. Cheryl, good to see you. Exploring with Ben, thank you so much for encouraging everyone to hit the thumbs up. Please hit the thumbs up. Please like the video, even if you don't agree with me in my takes. If you enjoy what we do here talking college football all the time, please hit the thumbs up. It helps immensely. Exploring with Ben, thumbs up, everyone. Mark just finished his Nebraska stream, just had to come give us this information and insight. Man works all the time. And right before that was Iowa. So, but that's what we do. We love it. In a sense, there's no good timing for it because there aren't head coaching changes in April or after spring practice or whenever. The timing, I don't completely agree with the timing being horrible. The timing actually kept the class for 2022 in place. From a coaching standpoint, in terms of how many options are going to be out there, remains to be seen. If you get the coach of your choice, and I mean a reasonable candidate, I'm not talking about Bill Belichick or, Sean McVay, talking about a reasonable candidate. If you get that guy, then you may change your mind. Okay, Malik, I understand that Minnesota does not look like a Super Bowl contender right now, but things change quickly in the NFL. I just outlined how Minnesota was a prime Super Bowl contender, one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the NFL just like 3 years ago. Now they're not. Cincinnati was awful last year. The influx of new teams in the playoffs is considerable, about 50% of the field every year. And just think about being a college coach with Jim Harbaugh's track record where he can get a job just about anywhere. He's got a number of options. Consider that, and consider the mess that you would have to deal with in today's environment. Recruiting's difficult enough. That's what we had 2 years ago. We had recruiting, all the recruiting issues, and trying to keep these players eligible by keeping their grades up, keeping them eligible, keeping them out of trouble. Consider being a head coach in college football, and they get paid plenty of money. So I don't feel sorry for them, but no amount of money, sure, it makes it worth it, but no amount of money negates or replaces having to go out and grind and grind and grind. And it is a grind to recruit all the time. And then also to keep these players, again, eligible from a academic standpoint, but also to keep them out of trouble, to keep track of 100. And I use this term in endearment. I think you'll understand what I mean. To keep 100 knuckleheads in line, a bunch of 20-year-olds in line. And now on top of that, that's always been the deal. But now NIL, and to try to, you're not probably as a head football coach directly involved with NIL, but you got to understand it. You got to know it. You got to educate your players and your incoming recruits about it. And you also have to be involved enough to know, hey, are we doing the things that we need to do to keep up with everybody else? So I don't have time to deal with it. I don't have the expertise. I don't have the connections. I don't have all that. But I'm the face of the franchise, and I got to know that we are keeping up with Ohio State and on a national scale, Texas A&M and Texas, what they're doing. And then on top of that, the transfer portal, where you don't any longer know what your roster is going to look like the next day, let alone a month from now. It makes the NFL look like the bastion of stability. I saw these memes on Twitter today. Urban Meyer, the head coach at Michigan, Justin says, I think the biggest factor is how ungrateful the fan base has been towards him. Every year, 90% were calling for his job while he was winning 10 games a year. And this after Rich Rod and Brady Hoke. There you go. The Rod Favre also didn't have to deal with. Can you imagine being a grown man? I can't imagine this myself. I can't imagine at my age, and Jim Harbaugh's older than I am, chasing after a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds and trying to maintain my self-respect, my dignity, my value as a person, to not just give in to every whim and be sucking up to them constantly. But at the same time, you got to make the school and the football team and all of it, and even more that we just mentioned, the NIL and everything else, look so attractive, contacting them constantly. Oh, my word. I believe most of you who are dropping the name Jim Harbaugh are kidding. If you're not kidding, and Jim Harbaugh, I'm sorry. Let me rewind 10 seconds. For those of you that are dropping the name Tom Brady, I think most of you are kidding because of the irony that he's a Michigan guy. And hey, they move up about 12 or 13 years in Michigan quarterback play in terms of Harbaugh, the 85, 86 quarterback, and then Brady, 98, 99. So they move up about 12 or 13 years, and then they go with the next Michigan legendary quarterback, and he becomes the head coach. Okay. If Tom Brady accepts the Michigan head coaching position, first of all, he doesn't. Well, I'm not going to comment on whether he could pull it off or not. Knowing him, he could. But what I would say is I would check his sanity. He's got far better things to do, I would think, and more relaxing things to do. But being the ultimate competitor, he's going to need something to drive him here pretty soon. If I'm Tom Brady, shoot, I'm not 1/10 as competitive or needing to be active as Tom Brady. But if I became independently wealthy tomorrow, I could take a little time off. I could take a couple months, and then I'd have to be doing something. I have to do something. I have to start a business or do something. All right. I'm going to sift through these comments. We got a super chat coming in. Can't miss that. Wes Blewett, thank you so much for the super sticker contribution. Appreciate that so much, Wes. Thank you for that. And also, I think there was something else here. Maybe not. Maybe not. There we are. Mama 24. Who do you think Michigan should go after for their coach? Okay. So we mentioned the guys that are on that list with Matt Rule, Bill O'Brien, Matt Campbell. Last offseason, I was in the Matt Campbell camp. He was my candidate when it appeared as though Michigan may be done with Jim Harbaugh. I really like what Matt Rule has done as a college coach. And now that he's gone to the NFL, and not that he's been highly successful, but I think that's good. I think that's a good experience. I think that's a valuable experience if taken the right way. And I think Matt Rule is that smart. I think he's that savvy. I think he did a great job at both Baylor and Temple. I would tend to go Matt Rule over Matt Campbell now. Other than that, is there anyone that we're not? There's all sorts of guys we could come up with. Jerry says Brian Flores. PJ Fleck. Jerry likes Mark Stoops. What a job he's done at Kentucky. Exceptional. So what's changed about college football to a certain extent is in years past, we would be looking for who's available. Not necessarily anymore. If Michigan's going to play the game the way others have played it, like Oklahoma or like USC and like LSU, think going forward, it doesn't matter who's under contract. It doesn't matter who has a job or appears to be in a good position. Go contact them, talk to them, see if they'll leave. If Michigan is willing to pay a buyout that could be enormous, then you go after it. Falconer X, thank you for the super sticker. Appreciate you being here. Falconer X, always on our Miami streams. Good to see you right there. Anybody who's listening to me right now, and I am asking for it, I am asking for a ton of emails to come in, but I can handle it because I want as accurate a count as I can get on the main channel of who you root for. I want fan bases. I would love to have some kind of big 33,000 subscriber list to know, okay, 12% are Michigan fans and 9% are Ohio State fans and 14% are Miami fans and whatever it is. I would love to have that. So hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Yeah. And just send me an email and tell me who your team is. You can tell me other stuff if you want to. A lot of people have told me their life story or how they became a fan or how long they've been watching. Would love to know how long you've been watching, but just hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Just say, I root for Michigan. I've been watching for 2 years. That would be awesome if you could do that. I would love to get a good feel for what the fan base out there looks like that watches us on a regular basis. Falconer X says Vikings are a move down for Jim Harbaugh. Ken Dorsey, to offensive coordinator for the Bills, is an upgrade, but puts the U out of play. That is correct. So Ken Dorsey has moved up to offensive coordinator for the Bills from quarterbacks coach. And to some people, an NFL job is always above a college job. For others, it all depends. And for Falconer X, he says, hey, Michigan's better than being the Minnesota Vikings head coach. David, I appreciate you answering here, but please hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, because I'm not going to go through all of the comments here to go searching for people's responses to their favorite team. Lee Corso, good selection right there. I would, if I were not a very kind individual, I would have comments to make about that. But for the obvious shortcomings of the current Lee Corso, but he's a fine man and obviously has had some health issues. All right, still kid, it's Rogers, not like Aaron, like Kenny, Rogers, no D, Rogers. Thanks for asking. Okay, so like we've been talking about here, Ghost, apparently, according to the Wolverine, if they're accurate in their reports, neither of those. He did not sign yet, but is going to Minneapolis tomorrow to sign, and it's not an interview. Luke Fickell. What do you guys think about Luke Fickell? A former Buckeye, an ardent Ohio State Buckeye. We're talking about a guy that's been very close to Ohio State. He didn't just play there like Marcus Freeman, who actually did some coaching there as well and move on. But Luke Fickell has been tied closely to Ohio State. Michigan fans, what do you feel? How do you feel about Luke Fickell? And thinking, oh, some are going to say, hey, just so he wins. Others are going to say, like Jared Lake here, going to say, no Buckeyes, no Buckeyes. Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin just doesn't seem like a Michigan coach to me. He just doesn't seem like he carries himself in a Michigan sort of way. I don't really think that I can see Lane Kiffin as the head coach at the University of Michigan. A lot of support, of course, for Dave Aranda. And of course, the GOAT gets a lot of support there, TB12. But I would need to have some kind of mental examination for one Tom Brady if he wanted the Michigan head coaching job. Zach is asking, do you think Michigan already knows who their next head coach will be if Harbaugh leaves? I do not. I guarantee they've got a list. I guarantee they've got a list. And I don't think that they've really gone out talking to anyone while Jim Harbaugh is still their head coach. They want Jim Harbaugh to remain the head coach. They wouldn't have waited all this time. Michigan athletic director Ward Manuel, what he needed to do, and I mentioned this to Steve. Let me back up. The tongue didn't work right there. I mentioned this to Steve Dace on Michigan podcast today, and he agreed. And of course, Steve's got so much more insight into this and the Michigan way than I do, but I appreciate him having me on every Tuesday. Is that this is ridiculous that we are 35 days after the Orange Bowl and Jim Harbaugh is in play for NFL jobs that involve non-playoff teams. If I were Ward Manuel, I'd say, okay, I understand your interest. You're going to listen to NFL offers. I'm not happy about that because I want you to be loyal to Michigan, but I understand the interest. I understand the intrigue and that you got to find out. You got to explore some options. So you be back here in 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks. We cannot wait over 5 weeks, 35 days for you to figure out where you're going to be the head coach. So this Minnesota job, when was the last day of the NFL season? They play way too long now. So the regular season went another week this year. So I think it took us to the weekend of January 1st. January 1st was if I'm not mistaken, that was the last weekend of NFL play. January 1st, I think it was Saturday. So the 2nd, I think. So those coaches got fired like the next day. So January 2nd or 3rd or 4th in that range, all the NFL head coaching jobs are open except for the Raiders, which they played a playoff game. Why they fired that guy, I don't know. But anyway, played a playoff game. So all the head coaching jobs in the NFL were open as of January 3rd or 4th. If I'm Ward Manuel, man, I'm saying 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks. And then I'm cutting you loose. I need to have an answer. Otis is taking us toward the NFL or the transfer portal, not the NFL. Sorry, my terminology is getting mixed up here. The transfer portal problem, yes, we'll address those. We're talking Harbaugh right here, but certainly we've talked about the transfer portal, and I have my ideas on how that could be restricted much better. That could be, you could still have freedom of movement for the players, but you can get it under control and make it manageable for the coaches. And take your cue from NFL free agency. But we will get into that at a later date, and we've already addressed that a number of times. Falconer X says, the big sports networks are great, but no interaction. Mark Rogers TV is the future of in-depth college sports coverage. I appreciate that, Falconer X. I am here to talk college football with all of you all the time. Absolutely. This is what I love to do. And we got a number of people that just flat out tell us, well, the Vikings suck. Ooh, Dan Mullen. Yikes. Walter, tell us, what do you think a Michigan coach is, Mark? a Michigan coach with the status of this program is a guy who has proven himself to be a first-rate recruiter and a first-rate manager of a coaching staff, both from the hiring standpoint that they've shown that they are capable of hiring a staff and hiring the right coaches and putting them in a position to succeed. A head coach nowadays, especially, can get away with not being the best of on-field tacticians if they do the right hiring. Now, it helps if you're a Bill Belichick, of course. It helps if you're a Tom Landry and you have that level of football knowledge and strategy in your head. But if you're a Mario Cristobal and you're more of the CEO, then it just makes it more imperative that you hire well. If you're Les Miles, now somebody should have taken over time and game management from Les Miles, who was, of course, most famously almost a Michigan head coach in 2007. We appreciate the super chat coming in from Brandon Bard. Let's be honest. Michigan wins in this deal. Go Bucks. Okay. Some people don't believe Jim Harbaugh is a very good football coach. So my thought there is, even before this season, I'm on record a ton of times here as saying, Jim Harbaugh, look at what he's accomplished. He started off at San Diego, did a phenomenal job, did a good job. I'll peel back the hyperbole. Went to Stanford. There he did an incredible job. Stanford football was a mess, winning 2 or 3 football games. He went to BCS games with Stanford. He brought it up to the level of going to BCS Bowls. Left there, went to San Francisco. The 49ers were a 2-14 team. Somehow Jim Harbaugh got 3 NFC championship games out of them. Sure, the front office had to cooperate big time and bring in better players, but he basically took the same team and lifted them out of the very bottom of the NFL to 3 consecutive NFC championship games. And Jim Harbaugh, as it stands right this second, has the 4th best record in the history of the NFL for coaches that have coached at least, I think, 3 seasons. Then he goes to Michigan and turns them around immediately. Now, his first failure in his coaching career was once he turned Michigan around. They went from 5-7 the year before he was there, 10-3, won a bowl game. He gets the recruiting rolling. The next year, 2016, is a strong season that came within that close again of who knows what they would have done in going to a Big Ten championship game, but he came that close. The measurement, you guys know what I'm talking about, the measurement against Ohio State. But then he hit that wall. And that was really the first failure of his career, was not getting past Ohio State for all those years and not getting to a Big Ten championship game. But he did it. So Ohio State fans will conjecture on whether that was an aberration, if the way things seem to be trending and continuing to trend, that Ohio State's still a superior program. It appears that the Ohio State dominance was going to kick in again next year. We'll never know. Now it's going to be a whole different deal with another coach, Clay Helton, sure. I believe this is in response to me guesstimating when the last NFL game was, the last NFL regular season game. So it's become way too late in the season. What was this past weekend? This past weekend was like the 27th. That was championship weekend. Then like the 20th would have been the divisional games. And then the wild card games would have been around the 13th. Yes, January 9th. There we go. They play way too late. All right, folks. We have so much more on this, the coming days. So we've got our Michigan live show on the Michigan channel at 5 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesday. We'll be there, 5 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday. Boom. Tomorrow, 5 Eastern, Michigan show. We've got our Oklahoma show. We've got Florida State and Miami tomorrow. But for you Michigan fans, Michigan live. And if anything becomes permanent here, and let's see if anything else has come online about this, in addition to what we read on the Wolverine.com. It's also on NBC Sports now. Jim Harbaugh plans to become next coach of the Vikings. So, but I think they are merely citing Chris Ballas of the Wolverine. So he was the first one to get out there with it. And now NBC Sports, hey, you can always go out there and protect yourself by saying they're reporting it. Outkick is reporting as well. Jim Harbaugh planning to take Vikings job. And they are citing, they're citing the same thing. So that's on 3 Sports from the Wolverine, Chris Ballas. So it all goes back to him. So other sites are citing him, NBC Sports and Outkick are citing the Wolverine and Chris Ballas and his report. So for all of you asking, is this official? No, it's not official. It is not official, but these sites typically don't, when they go out there and say, hey, this has happened, this is in the works, and our sources say it comes through about 90% of the time, but it's not necessarily a 100% certainty. Hugh Freeze, there's your candidate, but I do not see Hugh Freeze in his background going to Michigan. Don't see them accepting that. Pete Golding, coming from Alabama, is DC, possibly. I don't really know where the track record is or the impressive experience from Pete Golding necessarily that he would get the job. He would not be on my radar. All right, folks, with almost 1,000 people being here, I kind of hate to shut down to a certain extent, but I think we've squeezed this one dry. If you want to hear the complete conversation and all the comments and everything that I had to say concerning the situation and why I believe Jim Harbaugh did choose to leave Michigan to take an NFL job with Minnesota, please wait for the video to post and then certainly join us. Just wait for it to post and you can watch what you missed right there. Oklahoma, 12:30 Eastern. Michigan, 5 Eastern. Florida State, 6 Eastern. Miami, 7 Eastern on Wednesday for National Signing Day right here at the Voice of College Football. If you've got any requests, let me know. For those of you who would like to take part, and let me know, I want to get a good gauge on our fan base representation here at the Voice of College Football. Hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Heck yeah, there it is. MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Just let me know who you root for. And also, we could really benefit you if you sponsor us here at Mark Rogers TV at the Voice of College Football. If you'd like to sponsor us, hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, and I can let you know what we can do for you. All right, it's been a good time. Appreciate everybody being here. We will see you very soon. That means at 12:30 Eastern on Wednesday, live, Oklahoma live.